Game 3 tonight between the Nashville Predators and Vancouver Canucks, and you can only expect the series to get more physical from here on out. We'll preview tonight's game on today's Locked On Predators podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making the Locked On Predators podcast your first listen of the day. Every single day, we are your free daily Nashville Predators podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, I want to start out with a special shout out to our loyal Locked On Pred heads out there, the everydayers who tune into every single show. We love you guys and we appreciate the support you give us week in and week out. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio, and I have a partner in crime.
You do. I'm Ann Kimmel. I'm a writer at Penalty Box Radio.
You ready for playoff hockey in Smashville, Ann?
I am so ready. It feels like a very long time between game 2 and game 3. So I'm ready for game 3. I'm ready for hockey at Bridgestone Arena. Playoff style, playoff volume, playoff energy. Yeah, it's going to be great.
We mentioned this yesterday, but it seems like the Preds faithful are a little more, I guess, let's say, optimistic than they are that they have been in past series. So seems like there might be a little bit more buzz around this team going into this year. We saw videos of the smash car outside Bridgestone Arena.
Yes.
Go up yesterday. That tradition is back. That feels great. We're going to have a surprise anthem singer tonight. That tradition's coming back. So it just feels like this is going to be a really, really fun night for the Nashville Predators and their fans. And it's going to get physical as well.
Yes.
Playoff hockey is always physical. We've seen some physicality early in the series, not just in terms of hits and, all that, but in terms of blocking shots, getting bodies in front of pucks, some more key injuries to talk about today. We'll talk about the physical impact of the series and what the Preds had to say about that earlier today, plus some viewer questions. We're going to be answering your questions that you sent in on Twitter and on YouTube about tonight's game 3 and about the series in general. We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on the show. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Let's face it, we all have a competitive side. I have one, Ann has one, and I'm a big fan of Monopoly Go because the mobile hit twists on classic Monopoly allows me to really unleash my competitive side. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. All right, Ann, let's look ahead to tonight's game 3 between the Predators and Canucks. Quite simply, what are your thoughts on where the Preds are, where this series is, and maybe how tonight's game shakes out?
I think it's great going into game 3, evened up 1-1. Of course, it would be better to be up 2-0, but I think coming back with the series split from Vancouver is a great place. I think Nashville having just a little bit of extra time off. I know I just complained about how long it felt between games 2 and 3, but I think for the players, they are chomping at the bit to get back out there. But I think that extra day to kind of compensate for travel and for the physicality of this series has been great. There are a couple of small things that I think that Nashville needs to do maybe a little bit better or a little bit differently in game 3 to be successful. But I will say this, in talking to Andrew Brunette, hearing from the players in the locker room after practice yesterday, it doesn't seem like this is a team that feels like, man, we need to revamp everything.
No.
I think they feel like even though this hasn't maybe looked like 2 games that the Nashville Predators played, all season long, I think they like where they're at and feel like maybe just a couple of adjustments are going to be difference makers for the Predators. So I like where this team is at. And let's remember, I think there's so much buzz around the city for a number of reasons, but one of them is nobody thought we'd have this. And the
Right.
Nashville Predators are in the postseason and they're competitive in this series. And I think that's going to continue tonight. I think it's going to be a very competitive game.
Yeah. We mentioned this yesterday where it didn't feel like the Predators need to change too much. They didn't really need to change too much after game one, just sort of work on those weird 12-minute or 12 seconds of hell, those little pockets where they just seem to
Yeah.
get off their game and can't recover. There's a couple of those moments maybe in game two. It just so happens that Juuse Saros shut the door. One thing that I was really surprised about, Ann, is the Preds penalty killing this series. Has been spectacular because in game two, especially early, they certainly gave Vancouver some chances to capitalize on the power play. But not only has Saros shut the door, but the Preds defense hasn't allowed a ton of shots on goal during those times. So I'm kind of surprised about special teams not being as big of a factor as maybe we thought it would be, because Vancouver has a very good power play. The Preds power play has been getting better, especially since, the start of that 18-game run. So, yeah, I mean, I'm a little bit surprised that the scoring hasn't picked up a little bit
Right.
more. To me, I look at Nashville and, we talked about this yesterday with, Casey DeSmith being sort of the starter apparent for the rest of the series, with Thatcher Demko out. On that home ice tonight, with the crowd behind him, with all that energy, coming off a win, coming off a game one where even though you lost, you were happy with how you played. Boy, this is an opportunity for Nashville to really jump out on that board early and really sort of grab the game by its throat, really within those first 5 minutes of the game, really set the tone, really sort of get the shovel and dig a hole for Vancouver to have to climb out of. That's the opportunity for tonight. And I don't think that we're going to see another matchup where it's like 18 to 16 shots again,
Yeah.
or 22 to 21 like it was in the first game. I think you're going to see this series open up a little bit more for both teams, not just for Nashville, but for both teams. And I think it starts tonight at game 3 in Nashville.
I agree with you. I would be so surprised if this series didn't, like you said, open up tonight for both teams. I do think that you're right. I think we may see games that don't look quite like 1 and 2. Andrew Brunette, used the term muddy to describe the series. And I think on the one hand, yes, I think he's right. This is going to be a battle, and it's going to be inches, and it's going to be little puck battles and little moments that are each team is going to have to slog through to be successful. He also talked about the exact same thing you said about getting on the board early. Like, that's been something that's been very helpful for the Nashville Predators in this series. Both of these teams are very good first period teams.
Yeah.
So it's been great for Nashville to get on the board early. And that's something Andrew Brunette and the team, has talked about. It's like, okay, when we get to game 3, we've got to get to the game early. I think it will help in a lot of ways to do that on home ice because of just the energy. I did think it was interesting. Andrew Brunette said, and I don't think this is in a clip we're going to share later, but he did say something about sometimes that much energy in a room can almost distract you from your game and make you try to do too much. And so that's going to be something the Predators are going to have to work on, but do expect to see them come out with a jump. We saw it with Vancouver in game 1. They really kind of had a jump at the beginning of game 1. I think Nashville's going to do that. And I do think this game is going to open up. I think we're going to see a game more offensive than what we've seen.
Yeah. As we mentioned, another big thing that I think we can expect tonight is the physicality. And look, there's been a lot of block shots, a lot of hits. It's playoff hockey. It is a swing game. The hitting is going to pick up a little bit. The animosity between whistles is going to pick up a little bit. How do the Predators sort of manage that? How do they keep their emotions in check while still stepping up to play that physical style of game? That's a conversation that we're going to have, and also that some of the players and coaches weighed in on yesterday during practice. So we'll talk about that coming up in just 1 second. First, though, I want to mention today's episode is brought to you by Indeed. When you're putting together your fantasy team, do you ever wish you could just handpick the best stars for your team? If you own a business, you probably wish you could treat it the same kind of way, right? Where you get to handpick all of your employees to put together a dream team. Well, if you're building a talent roster, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place, so you don't have to spend hours on multiple job sites looking for candidates with the right skills. Instead, you can do it all with Indeed. You can find top talent fast with Indeed's suite of powerful hiring tools like matching, assessments, and virtual interviews. And if you hate waiting, all of us do, right? Indeed US data shows over 80% of Indeed employers find quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job. Indeed knows when you're growing your own business, you have to make every dollar count. That's why with Indeed, you only pay for quality applications that match your must-have job requirements. So visit Indeed.com/locked-on to start hiring now. Again, that is Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Cost per application pricing not available for everyone. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. All right, Anne, we mentioned that physicality is a big thing in this series. It's a big thing in any playoff series.
True.
Let's be honest. You're playing the same team up to 7 times in a row. There's going to be some familiarity, a little bit of, rubbing the wrong way, a little bit of carryover between games. For the Nashville Predators, though, how do you sort of manage the physicality without crossing the line here?
Yeah, I think that's a big focus for the Predators going into game 3. You want to keep that physicality going. You don't want to pull back from that. You want to get in there. And if you have to forecheck hard, you forecheck hard. But the other thing that Nashville does need to tweak is those penalties. They've got to stay out of the penalty box. Yes, the penalty kill has been great, but let's just not even. And so I think that's something that Nashville's like, look, we know this is going to continue to be a physical game. Yes, there was a statement win in game 2 with all of those blocked shots, and that takes a toll on the body physically as well. But how this series has been, I think, is how it's going to go when it comes to physicality, when it comes to blocking shots. It's going to continue that way. And yesterday we heard from Andrew Brunette about, blocking shots. We heard from Ryan O'Reilly. I talked to Luke Shen, of course, talked to Jeremy Lauzon. If you're going to talk about physicality, who do you talk to? You talk to Jeremy Lauzon, the hits leader in the NHL. And this is what they had to say about the physicality of this series, blocking shots, recovery, and how they see this series going.
A little bit committed to the pain. I think it's going to hurt, and we're willing to pay the price to feel it and go forward. So I think we feel pretty healthy, knock on wood, and just keep moving forward.
Yeah, it'd be tough. We were getting back at it tonight. Especially that's no easy travel either. I think with the amount of block shots and all that, and the bumps and bruises guys have, and then you got to cross the country. It's not easy by any means, but I think we'll be ready to go for tomorrow.
I love it. Obviously, it fits my game a lot. But yeah, I was surprised with the first game. I think I was a little not shy, but like a little on the edge. They came really hard. Obviously, we haven't played in 6 days, so I think it showed a little bit. But no, I think I really like how we came out the second game. We had fire in our eyes. And, it was awesome to see.
I love Jeremy Lauzon.
Yeah,
I love it. It fits my game.
Yeah, can we talk about Andrew Brunette and Ryan O'Reilly being like, yeah, it hurts. You get hit, you block shots, you have to travel around the country, and then Jeremy Lauzon's like, yes, doing like Broadway show tune dances. He's like, I'm hyped to punch someone in the face.
Yes, it's so hilarious. He was lit up like a Christmas tree. I love it.
Yeah, he is living his best life right now for sure. And another physical thing is, Vancouver might have another kind of interesting injury right now is Brock Besser. may
Wow.
not be 100%.
Oh.
According to a couple of writers, including Adam Kimmelman, who's the NHL.com writer for the Vancouver Canucks, Brock Besser got hit with a puck during a drill, left practice early. Rick Tocchet says he thinks he's fine, but
That would be
that's still sort of a question mark for the Canucks if he's not 100%, because 40 goals, that is a big source of depth scoring for the Canucks.
Yeah, that would be a huge loss for the Canucks, who are, like we said, already going to be without Thatcher Demko. That Thatcher Demko injury, it could be season or series changing. But if you take Brock Besser out of the equation, then you're definitely looking at a different Vancouver Canucks team. So it's something to keep an eye on. Another thing that came up out of practice yesterday that I think we need to just sort of talk about, maybe quell some rumors on the Nashville side. Juuse Saros, baby. Juuse is back. He was at practice yesterday with the Nashville Predators. Kind of back. Well, and it gets everybody going, oh, who's he going to go in the game for? Who's injured? What's going on? Look, no injuries to report. Filip Forsberg was not at practice yesterday, which is not unusual. That is very typical. So not a sign of anything. But, Andrew Brunette was asked about Parson, and I think they want to just keep him playing. Milwaukee is kind of in between regular season and their postseason. They want to keep him playing. He did sort of say in an offhand manner, like, if he could get a chance to start. But I think that's like, hey, if three guys go down, we've got Juuse Saros in. So yeah. I don't think that there's like a huge lineup drama going on for the Predators. I also don't think that there is any sort of injury happening. Everybody was on the ice yesterday at practice and healthy, minus, of course, Filip Forsberg.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like the Predators are going to make any sort of changes or anything like that. I know a lot of people are like, oh, do you think Cody Glass maybe gets a chance here at some point? I would be very shocked if Andrew Brunette made any sort of roster shakeup whatsoever. But yeah, to go back to Juuse Parson, and yeah, because I saw some people being like, oh, he's, Brunette sort of hinted he may have a chance to get in the lineup, and I didn't read into that at all. I sort of made it, that his quote kind of came off to me as just like, hey, he's here, and yeah, he's ready to play if some other people get hurt.
Right.
But I didn't take that as, yeah, he's here to push people for a spot or anything like that. But
right.
Yeah, I mean, might as well. You have Milwaukee, kind of on a break. And, for a player like Parsonen, we sort of mentioned this, well before the season, is it just kind of helps to have him be a part of a playoff routine.
Right.
Have him be on practice with, the rest of the team, kind of get to experience, traveling back and forth for playoff hockey, just to kind of get that experience under him. Based on how good Milwaukee is this year, I don't know if the Preds are going to have, the rest of the young players up as black aces. So yeah, I mean, this is a good opportunity for him. Also, and maybe this is more on the Canucks side, but it's something that's been commented a lot on our page, commented a lot on Twitter as well. Casey DeSmith obviously going to start for Game 3. There's a lot of people, especially Canucks fans, saying if this doesn't go well, don't be surprised to see Artur Silovs up making an appearance at some point. Yeah. Would you switch allegiances knowing there's a Latvian on the ice?
I would not, because the Predators have Gustav Davids Griggles up here, and he is also a Latvian. But Artur Silovs, I cannot say his name.
I think it's Silovs.
Silovs, he actually is very good. It would be interesting to see what would happen if DeSmith really kind of fell apart. Did you see that somebody supposedly made an encouragement video for Casey DeSmith? Did you see this on social media? Like, fans came together and recorded, like, you can do it. You can do it. You go out there and give it your best. Did you see this?
I did not. Is this more cringe or less cringe than the rat video that came out?
More cringe. And here's
Okay.
the thing, like, while I love the sentiment of like you support your team and you support the next man up, it almost comes off like we don't think you can do it.
Yeah.
So we're sending you a hype video. And I'm like, y'all a professional athlete. Like
Yeah.
he's gonna be like, if Kevin Lankinen has to step in, I just know Kevin Lankinen's gonna be okay.
Do you
So
think
it's just
yeah.
kinda weird.
Do you think Connor Ingram is like, well, where the heck was this when I had to go up against Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar for 4 games?
If we would have known Connor Ingram, you know that Nick and I would have made an encouragement video. I mean, for Connor Ingram, I would still do it even when he's with whoever the team is that he's with now. The Utah Fury, Blizzards, Yetis,
Yeti.
Hockey Club.
Yeah, Utah Storm and Mormons.
Whoever they are. If you need
Yeah.
a hype video, Connor Ingram, where your people, but it was just kind of odd. So I keep an eye on that goaltending situation because it does not sound like there is a long leash for Casey DeSmith, which is interesting to me because I don't think he's gonna suck as much as everybody thinks he's gonna suck.
No, I don't think he sucked horribly at any point this season. I mean, his
No.
stats aren't ground shattering, but it feels like he's had pockets of solid play throughout the year. It sounded kind of the same thing for Archer Seelovs too. Nothing spectacular, but pockets of decent play. So it'll be interesting to see what the Canucks do as the season goes on. And I feel like it's time to figure out what our viewers think of this series so far and any questions that they might have. So let's get to some viewer questions and comments to close the show coming up in just a second.
We have all been there either as a player or a fan. It is second intermission. Scoreboard's not looking good. This is not what's going to happen in game 3. You're feeling low, not sure you or your team is going to pull it out. That's when you dig deep. You lift your head up and you say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, take as much of my friend's money as I possibly can. That's right. The smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It is the Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. There is so much to do at Monopoly Go. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball. You can charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests and in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb that leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play.
All right, Ann, let's see what our viewers think about this series. Their thoughts on game 3, their thoughts on how everything is going so far. We asked you guys to turn in your comments, questions, anything like that about game 3, about the series. And let's get to our first question, shall we? Or comment or whatever.
Thought. Yes. So at Hillhound21 on YouTube shared, I am optimistic about their chances of making this a competitive series. Vancouver needed that taste of humble pie yesterday in game 2, and it was glorious. Now that's a whole thought. I love the optimism, because I do think that Nashville is going to make this a competitive series. I also think that there was a very, very vocal, but probably smaller than you think, a subset of Canucks fans who were like, yeah, we're going to take this in 3, Vancouver in 3. And I'm like, okay, first of all, the math. But you know what I'm saying? I think it was a very vocal but small subset of Canucks fans who walked into this series overconfident.
There's a lot of people, especially some people in the Canucks media, may or may not be affiliated with us, who sort of looked at this as, oh, this is going to be a sweep. This is going to be, a cakewalk. I'd be shocked if this goes more than 5 games. It may still go just 5 games, but
But it could go either way.
Yeah. But I think that people are realizing that, what we saw, what we kind of talked about on paper going into the series is kind of playing out now, where either of these two games really could have gone either way.
True.
And it's that close. And, when you break down the stats for the teams this year, they're really not that far apart in a lot of categories, especially scoring. Vancouver's got some tremendous depth players, but Nashville's not far behind in depth either. Like we have, I think it was 11 players with at least 30 points this year. Vancouver had something like 12 or something. I don't know. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like really close.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I feel like these two teams are more evenly matched than maybe some people want to admit. It's just, I feel like because of where Nashville was 3 months ago, maybe that's sort of shifting perception of this a little bit. But I think that people are now starting to realize this really could go either way. The bounces are going to determine it. And hey, even if Vancouver does wind up winning, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. I think it's going to be, X amount of really close games.
Yeah, I agree with you too.
Yeah.
Next one, we have at Meg's daughter 24. For those of us who went to bed after the first period, you made the right choice. How would you characterize the Preds play? Are they on their game and relentless? Glimmers of greatness, or depending on the grace of God? I love that question.
Or all three.
All three. I would say, Nick, and tell me if you see it the same way. I would say across the board in these two games in this series, we haven't seen the Predators really totally get to their game yet. We've seen little bits of it, but we really haven't seen Nashville play their style of play for large periods of time consistently yet. We might tonight, though.
Yeah. And I feel like part of the reason is that Vancouver has played their style of hockey to an extent. Vancouver is a team, they're 6th in scoring, but 25th in shots on goal this year. They also allow the 6th fewest shots in the entire NHL. They're a low event kind of, you hate to use the term, but sort of like, they crave boring hockey. Where it's just they use their skill for patience. They use their skill to be, responsible and make responsible plays. And then they wait for plays to open up. They wait to, sort of like outlast, like be able to use their skill to outlast and make that last little finesse play to get, pucks open. And that's why they're 6th in scoring, despite having so few shots on goal, is because when they do shoot it, they're efficient.
Yes.
They have good shooters, and they're also patient. They wait until they have a prime scoring opportunity, and they can do that. And we saw that in a couple of games this season where this series where Vancouver hasn't gotten a lot of shots on goal, but they've had good scoring chances because of that style of play. And so, it's kind of funny because, Nashville likes to play wide open. Nashville likes to control the pace. Don't get that twisted for Vancouver not being able to play that style of game either, because Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes, JT Miller, those guys can skate and those guys are skilled. So, I would like to see maybe Nashville play their game a little bit more, make this more wide open. I'm just saying this is a warning for Preds fans. Don't expect that to be an automatic win either, because the Canucks have players capable of playing that style of hockey as well.
I agree. Here's a really quick question from our good friend Brian Baston. Why is Dante Fabro not playing, Nick?
I mean, I feel like is it as simple as just Andrew Brunette likes Spencer Stastny more?
You know what? I do think it is as simple as kind of a familiarity and chemistry kind of thing. I think these are the 6 defensemen. These are the pairings that have brought you success pretty consistently. And consistency is really important to Andrew Brunette. Trust and consistency. Those are things he talks about when it comes to playing Cody Glass, Glass being in or out of the lineup. And I think probably those are factors with Dante Fabro. I don't think there's anything wrong with Fabro's game per se. I don't think Andrew Brunette would be a nervous wreck if Fabro did have to step into the lineup. I do wonder though, because Fabro's best play, I think, has come with Roman Josi. And if you put Fabro in with Josi, then you have to do a lot more shifting. There's a lot more pieces that move. And so for me, I think that's it. I think he likes the pieces that are in place. Everybody is healthy. I think the defensive pairings are playing well. I wouldn't have been shocked if he went in for Carrier in game 2, just because I know Carrier kind of had a rough game 1. But Carrier came back in game 2 and was very, very good. So I just really think they've got people in spots that are familiar and have chemistry with each other. I don't think it's any big thing about Fabro.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be. Yeah, like we said earlier, I don't think you're going to see many roster changes unless the Preds just get killed a game or two, unless somebody gets hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I think Andrew Brunette likes the groups that he has. And finally, I mean, remember how long we wanted some consistency in forward lines and defensive pairings, and they found that through that 18-game point streak. And if that grouping is working, you really aren't going to want to mess with it, especially in the postseason. So
yeah, this is not the time to experiment. This is the time to load up on the best you have. So
yeah.
And it's the weekend and we have 2 games to talk about.
Yeah.
So you guys know the drill. Monday, we will be back on Locked on Predators with recap from game 4. We'll also talk, of course, about game 3, see where the series stands now. So it's going to be interesting. So stay tuned for that. And where can people find your work?
You can find my work online at Penalty Box Radio. You can find me on social media at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find me at penaltyboxradio.com as well. Follow me on social media at _NS Morgan. That's going to do it for us on today's Locked on Predators podcast. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Back with an all-new episode on Monday. We'll see you then.